So here we are in Lavrion, and I fill up the boat with diesel, completely top her off, and I've got from here about 150 miles to get up to Volos. I'm making this trip in day sails, but trying to get up there as fast as I can without having to sail in the dark. If there's one thing that I know, it's that I don't know everything, because I just don't. I mean, nobody does. I've learned many things through the years of traveling and just living, and many of those things that I've learned have been articulated by men that are much more eloquent than me. There's a famous quote attributed to the German Friedrich Nietzsche. So a traveler who had seen many countries, people, in several of the Earth's continents was asked what attribute he had found in men everywhere. He said, "They have a propensity for laziness." To others, it seems he should have said, "They're all fearful. They hide themselves behind customs and opinions." In his heart, every man knows quite well that, being unique, he will be in the world only once, and that there is no second chance for his oneness to coalesce from the strangely variegated assortment that he is. He knows it, but he hides it like a bad conscience. Why? From fear of his neighbor who demands conformity and cloaks himself in it. But what is it that forces the individual to fear his neighbor, to think and act like a member of the herd, and to have no joy in himself? Modesty, perhaps, in a few rare cases. For the majority, it's idleness, inertia, in short, the propensity of laziness of which the traveler spoke. He's right. Men are even lazier than they are fearful.
I just learned that today is daylight saving in Greece, so the sunset is an hour earlier than it was yesterday, which explains a lot for why I was like, why is it so dark right now? Because the sun should be setting in an hour. I'm gonna get there in an hour. The plan was I was gonna get there basically right at sunset, but now it looks like I'm gonna get there an hour after dark, which is not what I wanted. But I mean, daylight savings, didn't even think about it.
Even myself, I get lazy sometimes. But if you've got something to do, you've got something to do. And so then it becomes a question of, are you the type of person that will allow laziness to hold you back? Because maybe in times when life is good, you can afford to be lazy because you don't have anything too pressing. Again, another unforecasted wind. It looks like it's probably blowing 15, 20 knots out there in the direction that I want to go. So probably be motoring dead into the wind. We'll see. Let's get this anchor up first, though. No matter what aspect of life, there's always a balance. There's always a yin and a yang. Life is non-dual. The middle is where you want to reside, balanced between the two poles. So you got laziness and hastiness, and you don't want to be either. You want to be deliberately moving at the right time. One of the difficulties of balancing action and non-action is when. When is the opportune moment? Ideally, you always do something in the opportune moment, the moment that it is absolutely best. And I think when you're operating in the opportune moment, then you end up in a state of flow.
I understand this isn't really like it at all, but right now, cruising up this, it's kind of narrow. Feels almost more like a river than a channel. The water's a bit murky, you got some sediment in it. What I'm trying to say is it almost feels as if I'm like navigating up the Amazon River or something like that. Like I'm a lone explorer exploring this country, which I guess I am, but it's definitely not the Amazon River, it's Greece, it's modern day Greece. It's super safe. But ever so slightly, it feels wild.
You have to use your judgment and trust your judgment that it will lead you into flow. But when you start acting, you're not guaranteed to enter flow. You could start acting and not get into flow, or you could start acting and before you know it, you're in flow and you don't even notice it until you are then out of flow. Because I think the flow state is where we all want to be, and the ideal existence is to be in flow all the time, which is, I don't want to say it's impossible because I'm sure it's possible, but it's really incredibly difficult. That's probably what living a righteous life is. Living a righteous life might be living in flow. You have to have a goal in order to begin moving, because otherwise you just flounder about and you don't get anywhere. But once you start moving, you encounter life and its obstacles, and you encounter reality, and man makes plans and God laughs, but man has to make plans.
So I have to stop and wait here for the bridge to open. There's a bridge and it slides back. So I have to go over and pay the port police to, for the opening of the bridge. But it's supposed to, all the papers and everything say that it opens every night, but I guess it's not opening tonight, so it'll open tomorrow night. So I'll be here for tonight and then all day tomorrow. And then tomorrow evening I should be able to go through. It's nice to be docked. I haven't been docked. Well, I mean, I docked to pick up fuel, but other than that, I haven't been properly docked since Chania. It's kind of nice to have land right there.
And one of the hallmarks of strength is flexibility, to be able to encounter problems and adapt to them and overcome them. I've been told to stand by on channel 12 on my VHF radio starting at 9:30 p.m. and then they will call me by the boat's name when it is my turn to cross. Having talked to some other sailors who have done this crossing 5 different times, it could be beyond midnight before I get a call, so I have to stay awake and be on standby. It's midnight 30 and I'm still waiting to receive. Looks like they're finally starting to call some sailboats through. So they're starting with the catamaran. It's almost 12:45. The bridge is still not open, but maybe they're about to start. Looks like the other sailboats are getting ready as well. The bridge is opening.
Captain, come pass on the bridge, okay, now. Okay, thank you, over. Boat, Arianrhod. Arianrhod, this is Port Authority, where is name?
Arianrhod here.
Captain, come pass on the bridge, okay, now.
Okay, roger that, thank you. Something else that is very difficult to figure out is when to hold and when to fold. When do you continue on and push through the difficulties, and when is it that you're really just running into a brick wall and what you need to do is turn left because going forward just leads to pain. It's 1:30 in the morning and docked safe and sound. All the other boaters helped me dock, so that was very nice of them. You end up in a different destination, but you end up actually going somewhere. Because we live in a society in the Western culture in which holding and hustling and determination and never quit and keep going and all of these things is very highly praised, and it's oftentimes presented as the only possible way to success and the only answer. And then quitting or changing direction is generally frowned upon, but that is a foolish thing to think, because you have to make adjustments, you have to make course corrections, and sometimes you realize in the middle of the journey that where you were wanting to go isn't actually where you want to go, and you want to go in a different direction. It's very difficult because you also don't want to get caught in the trap of constantly changing directions and then never actually getting somewhere. When you're in a situation like that, you can seek counsel from people that you trust, but you're in a position in which that's life. You realize it doesn't really matter what other people think or what other people say or what other people's opinions are, because I'm going to have to make this decision, and I don't know if it's the right decision or the wrong decision, but I have to make a decision. Then you just have to deal with making a decision, and making a decision can be really difficult. When it comes down to it, it's all about your judgment, and do you trust yourself to make the right decision? And even if you don't trust yourself to make the right call, do you trust yourself, even if you make the wrong call, that you'll be able to work it out and it won't be devastating? Lutra in Greek means bath. So Lutra Dipsos, there is a hot springs here. Silly me, I thought that I could trust Google Maps. I thought that this part here was the whole hot springs, and what I failed to realize was that just down the beach, maybe 200 meters is the real hot springs, and those are actual baths in which you can lay and lounge in, and the water comes out at a blistering, sometimes 43 degrees Celsius, which is about 109 degrees Fahrenheit. And I think these things are things that you can only learn through experience of living. You can look to other people for advice, but who is to say? Who is to say what is right for your life, and who is to say what direction you need to go in? That's not another human's place to say. But people seek that out. People seek advice. People seek out direction. People seek out someone who will just tell them what to do. And I know this because I've done this many times in my life. When things get really difficult, sometimes I just want to find somebody that can just tell me what to do, tell me which way to go, because the responsibility of making a decision can be so heavy that you just want out from underneath the burden. But that's not what makes a man. That's not what makes a well-rounded individual. People can bear different amounts of responsibility. Not everybody can bear the same amount of responsibility, just like not everybody can lift the same amount of weight. People who work out can lift more, but at the very extremes, when people have reached their full potential of strength that their skeleton can hold, there are still people that are stronger than other people. And it's the same thing with responsibility. People are different. People have different strengths and different weaknesses. You can increase the amount of responsibility that you can handle by taking on more responsibility, by working out your responsibility muscle, your ability to carry a burden muscle. But eventually you will hit a limit to your abilities, and then you have to be honest with yourself. But to know where that limit is once again very difficult, and you don't want to lie to yourself and say that it's before it really is, because then you are squandering some of your potential. Once I got up to Volos, I learned that the country is going into a strict lockdown. I'm a firm believer that the last place you want to be anytime anything goes down is in cities. Even though I've more or less just arrived in Volos, I'm leaving and heading south down to northern Avia to wait out the lockdown. These are some of the things that I've found in life that are very, very hard to figure out. When do you hold? When do you fold? When do you act? When do you wait? And how do you make hard decisions? There's no clear-cut answer to any of those questions. It comes down to your judgment. And that is scary sometimes. That is very scary sometimes. And that's life. Life is scary sometimes. But that's where you have to build up trust in yourself. And you have to work to not lie to yourself. That is one of the biggest pitfalls, is lying to yourself. If you lie to yourself, you can't trust yourself. And if you can't trust yourself, you don't have anything. But knowing when you're lying to yourself, ooh, that is rough. Honesty and truth are hard. They're brutal. They burn the chaff. They separate the wheat from the chaff, and then you burn the chaff. But that doesn't make it any easier. If reaching your full potential was easy, then everybody would do it. And we know for sure not everybody reaches their full potential. Most people do not reach their full potential. And who knows if anybody ever has reached their full potential. But it's not easy. It never will be. And that's life. Thank you for watching. Have a great week.